And we're back, Steve. Another episode. I'm back in the comforts, in the confines of the temporary home until the move. So for those of you that caught the last episode, I was live from Lisbon, Portugal, and now I'm back in my comfortable setup here, Steve. So I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, welcome back. And you know what? The world didn't stop while you were gone, Shane. I just want to let you know,
That's good to know.
So much going on still. Yeah, so we got a whole bunch of places and topics we can go. We're going to get back to your story maybe next week or the week after and check in. And we're going to keep checking in because the interest level in your journey is super. I knew it was going to be super high, and it's been really high. People want to know what's going on and all the decisions you're making. But yeah, we got lots of topics we can cover this week.
Absolutely. One, I think we volleyed back and forth a little bit in different forms, right? Is this whole Great Resignation? This we're living in a world where, and it's so I don't want to call it funny, I guess, but it's entertaining to watch people who don't really understand what's going on or who don't really look at the data. They just kind of, they're reactionary to, oh, these people aren't working, or oh, these bunch of people they're quitting because they don't want to work and they don't want to do these things, and they don't want, we can't find anybody who wants to be here. Mm-hmm. And I find it really interesting. And I certainly have my own opinions, but also you and I mean, the reality of it is our every day is consumed by absorbing. I think I'm sending you new articles every couple of days on, more and more data, more and more things that are coming out. You're obviously, again, you're in the trenches of it. You're giving these talks to these different folks. I want your opinion first. That nobody's really coming here to really get as much my opinion as they are yours, right? So I'll give my opinion, but I'm curious. Like, what are you seeing? Because it actually, some of it's relevant to your backyard, and some of this too, with like this McDonald's thing. I don't know if you saw that, like this huge McDonald's mass like resignation in California. So I'm just curious.
So let's look at a scattergram of just in my life alone. I was in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, and billboard signs in front of fast food restaurants, $1,500 signing bonus. Okay. My stepsister was going to go see my stepmom and my dad. Her flight was canceled by American Airlines because they couldn't staff enough maintenance crew or baggage handlers. Flight was canceled. I was in Hawaii last week for a little R&R, and 2 restaurants I went to, I waited over an hour, in one case an hour and a half for my food. And because I'm someone who likes to talk and meet people, come to find out 80% of the staff in the restaurants new. The people that left didn't come back. The people who are starting are new. And the restaurants haven't caught up to this new rhythm, which is increased volume of delivery business. People don't want to eat in, dealing with a different staff for the people who are eating there and having to train and onboard a whole new crew. And for me, if I look at this, the problem for most businesses is many organizations have not had to fight for labor. Okay, have not had to really muscle. They've had a captive labor pool where people didn't have a lot of options and choices, so they didn't have to work to recruit. Okay, now those are the people in the audience here who've ever had to hire a software engineer, which I also call like an endangered species. Know what it's like. And having grown up in Silicon Valley, trying to compete against some of the best, sexiest, coolest brains in the world, I sharpened my sword, cut my teeth, got scars on my back, trying to innovate and create. Like, how do you win against in a world where people have lots more choice? And that's just one dimension of it, right? So when I look at it, the first thing is, most organizations, retail, restaurants, hotels, haven't had to work hard to attract talent. And now I'm even seeing fitness centers say, we used to post a job and have 15 applicants. Now I got to hustle just to get 3.
So think about this for a second, right? And it's very telling how companies are dealing with it now to what's actually happening, right? The companies who have, let's back up. And I'm not going to use a name. Let's call it a fast food restaurant.
Okay.
A fast food restaurant historically how did you know a fast food restaurant was hiring pre-COVID? How did we know? I mean, you and I, obviously, it's been a while since we were looking for those jobs, but you still knew, even if you, I mean, you've confessed you've got a love for McDonald's every now and then.
Partake in the fast food world. Yes, I do. I do. Yes.
So in that, right, you drove by and there was a banner out front, right? Or there was something on the marquee, right? It says we're hiring, right?
Right.
Well, in 2021, if that's what you're doing and that's your competitive advantage of how you're getting the attention of people, that shows I think that's a very telling example that you haven't had to work for good talent. You haven't had to work for good people.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, we talked about one of the companies, and I'll bring them up in a minute, that's doing some really cool work in that space. Has done some innovative stuff, and I think that's part of what we want to do in this show is help give hope and advice to people who maybe feel stuck right now. But listen, if this whole signing bonus phenomenon, I just got to tell anyone who's listening who thinks that's a great strategy, you don't understand. That is a failed strategy. All you're doing is renting someone for a few more days until they find out they can flip the switch and go to another place and get another signing bonus. So what Facebook did a few years ago, which was really, really smart, is they called it a signing bonus, but you had to work there 2 years to fully earn it. So really what it was a retention bonus. It wasn't a signing bonus.
Okay.
So, but you put in front of a college grad $40,000. They're like, how hard can it be? 2 years, Facebook, no problem. And then Twitter calls and says, hey, we'll give you, $50,000 signing bonus. Well, then it's like, well, no problem. So I think they're very short-sighted. That's a knee-jerk solve. It's not very strategic. And if they think that's what people are looking for, like that $1,500 stimulus signing bonus, like I think they're missing an opportunity. And if you're like me and I had McDonald's last week, like if you like fast food and you want to go work there, what about, offering all kinds of other things that you have in your control? Discount for your family to eat there, discount for you to eat there, other things in the whole McDonald's universe, discount passes to your friends and family to go to Disneyland. Like there's so many other things that can enrich.
They have partnerships, right? Like that's McDonald's has partnerships with Coca-Cola, with all these different people that they can innovate on. Right. So they've never had to innovate to hire. Labor has never had to be enticed to come work there. Right. Like, and we talked a little bit about that shift, about what happened in 2008, 2009, where people that didn't work there from an age standpoint moved down because now their retirement is hit and they got to work there. And I think there's two pieces to this where you have some experience so in the world of when you were at LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't have the $50,000 bonus to throw out there, and Twitter's on one side and Facebook's on the other, and you can look out your window and see them.
And
right?
there's Apple across the street.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can see them, and you didn't have those sexy things to throw out there, but you had to get creative. You had to find, how did you? It's not the same market, I guess, but I think there's some tips or some insight that other leaders and owners and C-suite folks can learn from, because the same thought, like maybe not the same actionable task that you did, but the thought process of you had to think about it this way. And what was that? Like, how did you do that?
So to frame it a little more specifically, for us to try to hire, we had a compelling reason to scale the company quickly, because we knew if we didn't do it fast, someone was going to steal the business model. Now, here's LinkedIn in the early days, and we knew something, and another competitor knew something, but no one else knew it, which was 90% of our traffic was coming from a Google search. What if Google decides to get into the recruiting business? Do you think they're going to direct all those searches around jobs to LinkedIn? So we knew we needed to build the moat fast, and we needed to go hard. So there was a lot of pressure to do that, and which was great. And there was, here's a universe where people have choice, where the counter offer reality is for real. What changed the game for us, what we learned, and again, we weren't the smartest, sharpest knife in the drawer, but we were focused on wanting to do this really, and we felt our mission was really compelling, helping people find their dream jobs. What we really tried to do was look at this from okay, what can we pay people more than our competition? No. Do we have better benefits? No. Do we have better buildings and facilities? No. Can people work here like less? Can they have more quality of life? No. So, all right. So what edge do we have? And the question was simple: like, why does anyone want to work here? And what really I think changed the game for us was thinking about this from, well, why does someone want to come here? Because I think the mistake a lot of companies are making and have made through years is trying to sell candidates on their journey. Hey, you should come here because we're doing this. You should come here because we're going here. Like, I'm going to sell you the candidate on my journey, the company. And what we did was we flipped it. We said, what's your journey, candidate? Where you want to go? Okay. Well, we think that's going to fit what we're doing. So we started listening, we started asking, and then we started to, get comfortable that not everyone was going to want to work here. And, the short answer is we turn culture into our competitive advantage. And the great thing is, guess what? Building a great culture costs you nothing. There's not, it's not perks. It's not, benefits, ping pong tables, beer
Fridays, that's where I wanted
right?
to go with it. Yeah.
It's really, this work experience that you're going to have here, we promise you will be better than any other place you could go. And it will make you bigger and better for the future. Not to keep you here necessarily, but forever, wherever you want to go. And we realized later, hey, we're the professional network. We should own this. We're LinkedIn. We should own the best work experience. That's kind of our birthright. And then we started to actually believe it, which was the first part was like identifying it and then saying, hey, we should own that. Let's go get it. How do we do that? Oh, well, we let people move around a lot. We let people change departments frequently. We're much more open-minded about it, right? And then here's the other thing. And this was the best investment we ever made, which was we asked our employees to tell the story. You like being here? Like what I do at a retail restaurant right now is I said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to hire you. And if you will promise to TikTok every day from the facility and tell people how cool it is to work here and how much you love it, and we're going to reward you every person comes in for an interview that from your TikTok or whatever, something like that. Like, let's be creative. Let's do something different.
Yeah. I actually just listened to this. You're going to love this because it's a sport tie-in. Okay. So I actually there was a gentleman doing an interview yesterday. So he's been a journeyman offensive lineman, played for a lot of teams in the NFL, played, I think, 13 years. His name's A.Q. Shipley. So he got brought in last minute to play on the offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. Blows his AC out like 4 games into the season. They bring him on as a coach, right? So they bring him on as a coach. He was doing an interview yesterday, and they were talking about, progressing through the coaching ranks, right? And how do you do that? Because you kept your job as a player, you kept your job by the film you produced and what you did on that film, right? Well, now you're a coach and you're the offensive line coach over here. You don't how do you do that? And the way he broke this down in a way that I'd never heard of, it's very relevant to this. And I'm not devaluing the restaurant business or fast food business, but very few people go as an entry level person. Very few people stay there their entire career. Very few make a career at working at a single store, right? There are people that progress, that kind of thing. But what he said was, he said the NFL is the only place in the only job in the world where we hire 90 and fire 45. So they hire every offseason, they hire 90 people and 45. And he said the guys who progress up in the ranks are the guys those 45 that get cut. How many do you have go on and continue to have a season? So meaning if he's gotten 7 on the team and 6 guys left and now they're doing really well somewhere else, then they're like, oh, that's one of AQ's. Those are AQ's guys. So Bill Belichick, they were talking about how the Patriots, historically, when those guys get cut, they almost never hit the waiver wire because they get picked up immediately by other teams because they said, oh, if Bill Belichick brought those people in, they must be really good.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be, if I call them springboard jobs, right? There are certain things that people take in a career, they use as a springboard, right? If I'm going to work at a restaurant, if I'm running a movie theater, if I'm running a local business, and this is just my entrepreneurial mind, right? I want to become the best place in town that's producing the most efficient, most quality human beings that can go enter into the local workforce possible. So I want everybody I want people coming to me saying, hey, you got some new people coming through? I want to be that place, because that can be my advantage of, you come here and you work,
Yeah.
and I'll help you get on to somewhere else once you've outgrown this place.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe I'm off.
No, but I call that playing the long game. Caring about someone for their career is much more rewarding, beneficial to you as a company than just caring about them when they work for you. So what I call that, you call it sort of a springboard. I call it the retail or restaurant fast food business. For most, including Starbucks, it's a career transition spot. No one is going there because this is my destination. Very few people. Corporate's another story, but in the store, it's transition. If you acknowledge that, you get okay with that, now you can see the world of possibilities in front of you. So here's Chipotle. I mentioned them a few minutes ago. Here's what they did. Chipotle says exactly, it's like right out of what you just scripted. They said, listen, we know your dream job's probably not here, and we get that. We want to help accelerate getting you to that dream job. So while you're here, we will pay for you to complete your high school, complete university. We'll fully pay for, no loans. We'll help you get English as a second language. And if it's an ESL issue, we'll put your whole family through ESL, because we know continuity and stickiness of education comes when your whole family's a part of that. And that's sort of like, it raises the hair on my arms, just talking about, like, that's evolved thinking. Like, I know this isn't where you're going to be. We both know that. So let's talk about where you want to go. I want to inspire you. And so I'm going to draw with this policy, as you said, I want to draw the best possible people that could work in my restaurant, because I believe it's going to deliver a better customer experience. I'm going to get more out of that restaurant, and we're going to have the best of the best. And that's only going to have a better result for my customers and my business.
Absolutely. Because if you go somewhere, and then, how did you get this job? Oh, well, Shane's Burgers, I mean, they lined up the interview for me and lined it up. Like, they set it up for me. Are you serious? Like,
yeah.
Well, yeah, like, they're hiring, man. You might want to go and get in, you might want to go do that. And that is, I just see it like, that's having empathy. That's the foresight to say, okay, self-awareness. Hey, we're not, you know what? There are probably some managers sitting somewhere. I mean, I guess we probably know this. There's a lot. I mean, there's not as many good managers as there are great managers. But there's managers sitting there thinking at the local fast food joint, pissed because somebody doesn't want to work there. And you got to turn that around, and you got to say, well, wait a second here. Like, why don't they want to work here? I want to work here. Like, okay, well, what you want and need is different from the average person. So how does that play into, and I think I text you when we talked about the whole tone deaf thing, where a local school district here is paying like a $1,500, $2,000 bonus for teachers to come and spend it. And like, if you have to pay someone $2,000 to take a job to teach my child, I probably don't really want them teaching my child. Like, that you didn't really want the job, right? Like, because to be a teacher, for example, it's no different than working at LinkedIn. You're here for a different reason to get a check, right? You don't, like, you're here because you want to do something you can't do somewhere else, right? And I mean, it's one of those things.
It is tough. I mean, I read that article you sent me about the bonuses for the teachers a little differently. It was almost like combat pay. Like, we're going to reward you for what you've been through. Having to face a new reality of learning how to teach differently, learning, in my twins that go to the middle school, with his plastic partitions and all this new stuff, and trying to, manage some kids at home, some kids in the classroom, and some kids who've been at home and they're not in a good home circumstance. I mean, just all kinds of new stuff. So, but it is tough. But I like where you're going with this. And I'm going to take a quick digression and sort of blow this out into, we're landing at a point in time for every organization in the world where being a leader matters more than ever. Your leadership's going to define your success through this nasty storm that we're still in more than ever before. But I will tell you, leadership is one of the most underfunded, underinvested, particularly in the technology world that I work in, because no company's building to be around 100 years. So why would we invest in leaders? We want to get our exit in eight or 10 years, take our money, and we're going to go somewhere else. So what are we doing investing in leadership? And the way they look at it sometimes, this is overly crude, is like, well, how hard is that? Just sort of give a bunch of people directions, and that's putting pressure right now for a lot of people who are in management roles who really didn't know how to motivate because they didn't have to motivate.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had captive people. I need that money. I need that job. And now it's like, hey, game on. Like I was working at Cisco where that 1 week before the dot-com bubble burst, we were the most valuable company in the world. We'd never missed a quarter. The stock was always rising. It's not hard to recruit when everyone's making a lot of money. And all of a sudden the stock went in the toilet. And all of a sudden people were like, how do we motivate? How do we recruit? We never learned how to do that when we're not the chosen choice for employment now. And that's where all these people are hitting right now. They're hitting that moment. It's like, oops. And they didn't invest in it. They didn't teach their leaders how to sell, and a lot of recruiting. I mean, it's kind of sales. Like you gotta know what your assets are. And if you don't know what they are, you're in trouble.
Okay. So I want to peel back the curtain a little bit. And I want to put you back into your role at LinkedIn for a second.
Okay.
You hired people out to help you scale out from 400 to 4,000 people, right? Dealing with what you dealt with, not the competitive advantage on any level other than culture, right? You hired people in who obviously things were good in what they did. Things were good where they were. How did you, in those private meetings, and you don't have to divulge personal things, but what things did you say that might be helpful for somebody listening now that's got to call their team in and the CEO's never had trouble hiring people. Now he's got to have a meeting Monday because 4th of July has passed and he thought it was just the summer. And when school got out, people would come in. Now he's faced with, holy shnikes, what are we doing? And how do we do this? So I'm curious what those conversations look like.
All right. Well, first I have to say it was a lot of trial and error. We've screwed up a lot. We made a lot of mistakes. We tried a lot of things. It didn't work. But what did start to work was being clear on how building your story to differentiate yourself from all the other stories that they're hearing. What are you doing differently? And for us, it was our purpose is more meaningful than any other company in Silicon Valley, helping people find their dream job. More important than helping kids learn how to not do their homework at Facebook. More important than being assigned to some project you don't even understand over at Google with 6,000 other people that are, you're going to have to shine against. More important than, helping the world learn how to type, things in 140 characters of Twitter. Like we got real clear on why our mission purpose mattered. Okay. And so we would talk about that. We got better over time learning, sell them on the what and the why and not on the how much we're going to pay you. Like that's the last thing you talk about. You say, okay, do you want to be here? Yeah. Do you see how you can make a difference? Yeah. You see how we can change the world? Yeah. You see how this is the right place for you? Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we're going to just be in the ballpark when it comes to all the other money stuff. Cause Google's making more money in a day than we make in a year. So we can't pay you that. But if we play our cards right, your fingerprints are going to be on this trophy of success, and you're going to be able to write your ticket, hopefully here or somewhere else. So you want to be a hand in building this? You want to architect it, or do you want to go in all these other places where they already built it? It's a lot less risky, but you're going to have to fight with 700 other people that look just like you, or you're going to come in here early and help build it. So I think the bigger point is get clear on what your story is and how it's different, and don't fall into the trap that everyone does. Well, in high tech, this is the trap that all the entrepreneurs fall into, which is when someone says, well, why would I want to work at your startup? And they say these 5 or 6 things, every one of them. Hey, we got a great product. We're going to make a lot of money. We got really good investors. We got really great culture. We're a lot of fun. Like, yeah, that's cool. But everyone says that. So what's different? Right. And so that's the question. And it starts with something I mentioned earlier, which is ask your leadership team, get in a room and ask a simple question. Why would anyone want to work here? And who is that person? And where can we find them? And over time, one of the things that we did at LinkedIn that really helped us was We looked at all our superstars and said, what can we learn from the superstars that we have? Where did we find them? What's their background? What schools did they go to? What other companies did they work in? Maybe there's a story there that we can mine to go find that profile. And similarly, what is the story of someone that we keep getting them to the altar and they keep saying no? Like what's that? What are they looking for? And let's try to screen that earlier so we don't date them for weeks and then they dump us, right? When we make a job offer. Like let's try to figure that out, right?
It seems like there had to be an underlying altruistic drive. Like there had to be a common altruistic drive in those type of people, right? Because someone who wants to have legacy, right? Someone who wants, that's why, I mean, let's be honest. That's why, I mean, the money is definitely part of it, but it's also why people join and kind of ride the IPO wave of, hey, let's jump on. I want to be there. That, and it's, but I don't know that they realize how hard it is. Right. So there has to, like, that's what I'm saying. Like quickly you realize, oh, this is like, yeah, they weren't playing. Like this is actually really, really tough stuff. Now I actually got to fight through that part of it. And it's hard to do if it's only money that's there, because the first thing you do is you turn and look and say, oh, well, who else has got money? Who else has to be there? And I think a lot of these small, because I think the big resignation, I think I haven't seen the data, but I would reckon that a lot of the data is actually probably your smaller businesses. It's your local community-based things that are struggling. And I even encountered it in Portugal. We went out to a restaurant one night and we're eating, and Portuguese people historically, they take a long time at dinner time. Meals are a big to do. Like there's a lot of food, there's different courses. Like it is a big to do. But we were at this one restaurant and it was taking a little bit like, even for there, we didn't really complain, but it was the first time it really, like, we've been here 2 hours and nobody, we got olives and we got some cheese. And like, so like, what are we waiting on here? So we had to kind of get up and go find somebody. And again, we found this young lady was working who was waiting on us, and it was her very first day. And it was she was like, sorry, we're shorthanded. So I think everybody's feeling it. I think there's so much. So we've talked about how do we do it? What do we think? Like, what do we think is there's an underlying thing to it, right? Because I guess money is a part of it, right? But I don't think it's a part of it in a way that most leaders or managers want to be honest with themselves about, right? If you're McDonald's or you're any fast food restaurant and your sign outside shows a strike through the $9 an hour, and now we're doing $12 an hour in 2021, you're still missing, I think, some of it, because when you do the math to what that comes out to after taxes and the quality of life, and I mean, I'm here in Kentucky, in small town Kentucky right now, in the rental market for a 2-bedroom house. So let's say you got a family with kids, right? Or a single parent with kids, a 2-bedroom house to rent right now. And there's not many apartments. A 2-bedroom house is $1,400 a month. It's a lot of money to a family who's only making $9, $10, $12 an hour. And it's easy for people on the other side of that to say, well, maybe they should get a different job, or maybe it's not that easy, right? And it's not, that's very short-sighted to say that. So how do then we keep people? We're going to have to up pay.
Right.
Now you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to say, like, I know that you don't plan on working here. So my goal, I want to help you get here. And I see you've got a family, and I want to teach you some skills. So whatever you want to learn, let us know. And our management knows to have autonomy and show you and help you teach everything except the books. We're not going to let you handle the money for obvious reasons. That's just typical standard. But anything else you want to learn. So, because what we want to do is we either want to work you up to where we can transfer you to another store where you can make $20 an hour, or help you get the skills so you can go somewhere else and level up your career. All we ask is that you tell the world how we treated you, good or bad. That's it.
Yep.
And I know that sounds really simple, but in a world where we're just coming off a pandemic, people want a job. I think you're going to have to do those things.
Right. And in a world that we're coming out of, hopefully faster, sooner than later, where people had a little more discretion, a little bit more freedom, a little more time to reflect. We're seeing people are not that comfortable going back to what was. They want something different. So let me repackage what you just said, Shane, because I think it's really good foundation for creativity, especially around rewards. So in the more evolved, companies that approach this notion of compensation, they call it total rewards. And I think what probably is the pandemic is going to create a good forcing function on creativity in this domain where there hasn't been a lot over time, particularly in some of the industries we've been talking about, fast food, hotels, and so forth. So one time at Cisco, we were facing a real crunch. We couldn't hire people. And reason was we could always find work for the trailing spouse, but we couldn't find affordable housing for them. So we shopped around. Well, we talked about it and we said, what can we do? We said, well, what if we find some banks willing to work with us to give super low interest home loans to people, and help mitigate that problem. Okay. And so then we started to do that for, some senior leaders, like, hey, we know this is a part of your math, right? So what is that $12, $15 an hour? What does that really represent? That represents, a recognition that you have financial needs. Okay. But what if your needs are different? What if your needs are more, this is far away from my home. My money's going to get eaten up commuting. I'm going to need a better car. I'm going to need gasoline money or whatever. Like
daycare. I need trustworthy daycare or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what assets do some of these huge fast food chains have that they're just not thinking about because they're focused on, well, it hasn't been hard to find this talent. So why do we need to do these other things? Well, guess what? I think we're going to start to see, look at the needs of people. And this is where at scale, it gets more complex because being consistent becomes harder in a world where everyone wants a customized, concierge level benefit plan, right? Because everyone's needs are different, right? Like I used to say when I was single, how come all these people with kids are getting all that healthcare discount? I'm not getting any of that. Like that doesn't seem fair to me. Like so-and-so's got 4 kids. I got, more than 4 kids now. Like so-and-so's got 4 kids. You're charging them nothing for that. I'm one person. I'm saving you more money than they are, but that's not being balanced some other way, right? And so when I'm talking to people that are doing math and I'm thinking of changing a job, it comes down to a simple math for me. It's like, I'm ready to leave because what I'm putting in is not being matched by what I'm getting out. So I'm putting in all this extra time, all this work, all this stress, all this anxiety, all this commute time, and that money, my boss, the compensation, the benefits, the perks, the bonus plan, the 401k match, the company culture doesn't mitigate that. It's not leveling for me. It's off. It's off too much, right? Rarely are you at harmony on all those things, but when things get way out of kilter, that's when someone says, I got to go, and more times than not, it's the boss. You join a company, you quit a boss is what we say in HR. So that's what, think about that big organizations. Think about what assets do you have that you can get creative with. And all you need to do, you don't need to be the best in the world. You just need to be a little bit better than your competition. That's all you got to be. For you to get the advantage.
So we try to provide value and ideas and thought process. So something popped into my head, right? Mm-hmm. And let's again, I hate calling out a company specific by name. So let's call a certain franchise, right? So we have a fast food franchise here where someone owns 3 or 4 of those in the area, right? And every one of them are hiring. Every one of them are struggling to hire. You almost want to call that person up and say, hey, do the math on how much business you're losing every day. And what is it costing you by not being fully staffed, right? Even the grocery stores here aren't open after midnight. And they're not open 24 hours anymore because there's not people here. So what is that costing you? And then give me the demographics. Well, 70% of our people are, under 25. Well, then would we still be able to make money if we covered everybody's car insurance premium? We just say, hey, we'll pay your car insurance. Or if 70% of our
right, and because we've got so many employees, we could negotiate a much lower rate for car insurance.
Unbelievably,
than just you on your own. Yeah.
So it may not cost us anything, right? It may, like, we may be able to get this in with our insurance folks and actually not cost us anything. So, or okay, let's say you've got, well, we got 19 people who have kids, or typically we hire out, and we would, if we added staff out of those 19 would be single parents, right? Well, how much does it really cost you to go over here and rent a $3,000 a month space, license out a daycare? If you, and I'm not talking about the franchise headquarters, I'm talking about the local franchisee. Like, you have to think this way. Don't wait on them to get innovative and figure it out. Put these together. So what if I go over here and I do this? And if we don't fill it up, now we can bring other people in. We'll give it free to those people. And then we can still, like, there's gotta be, there's no way these things don't work.
Yeah. And I love how you're framing this. And here's another one. You've got 3 of these restaurants in different locations. How about instead of hiring one for one location, you say, hey, I know this one's closer to your home over here. How about you do 2 hours over here on Tuesdays, and on Thursdays you work over there? And now you're meeting the needs of someone because they've got a shorter commute or something like that. Like, you've got all these other opportunities to be creative here. And I'm not seeing it that much.
Yeah. Like, if we're going to train you, and these days of the week I need you to work here, and these days of the week I can get you half your time, I can get it closer to where you're at. Like, there are things we can do to, like, again, I hate sacred cows. I cannot stand them. So when somebody tells me, well, I mean, that's just the way it's, no, that's not. It goes back to my story I told you, where I interview, or I talked to a bunch of HR folks, and they were like, oh, and then at the end I said, none of you have hired me. None of you even called me for an application, for an interview, because because you don't accept applications where somebody doesn't have a college degree. Well, that's just the way okay. Well, if that's the way, it's 2021. If you are not trying to, so in the startup world, and you probably felt this way at LinkedIn, maybe you heard this terminology, but in the startup world, the entrepreneur world, somebody's going to put us out of business. I'd rather it be us than someone else. Meaning, I'd rather us innovate to the point to where we stay ahead of it than somebody else coming along and putting me out. So I've got to figure out a way to stay ahead of all my other competition. If you actually have the advantage, if you own 5 fast food chains in town, you actually can do a lot more than what the person who owns one, or the guy who just has a factory, or the people who just have the grocery store. You have some flexibility in a lot of things you can do. And it goes back to a lot of other things, but I think that is where is your empathy and truly understanding? Also, what are you willing to go without as senior? What are you willing to go without until things get normal, until you get it figured out? Right? So, and it kind of bleeds over into another topic that I saw today. 90% of, and by, please, I'm a guy, so don't attack me for this, but it's just the facts and the numbers are what they are. I think it's something like 90% of male owners and C-suite folks took a raise during the pandemic, and a majority of females took a pay cut in the same positions comparatively. So I don't know why. We can argue for different reasons and probably step on a grenade here if we did, but where is that? What are we willing to do? What am I willing to give up for the long term? So we talked about playing the long game. There's a lot of ways to play the long game. There's a lot of ways. The reality of it is, if you own 6 McDonald's here in town, you probably, the pandemic might have hurt. It might have affected your quality of life, but you're not in the same position that your people who help get you there are. Yeah. What changes can we make? What can I do? Right. Anything. There's so, like, you could do something so off the wall. Every mom here, we're going to give you a day of free daycare once a month, and we're going to help get you. You can pick from these things where we'll pay for your therapy. We'll pay for you a spa day, anything, something to where we can help your mental capacity of dealing with what it is. Because there's also the stress, and we don't talk about this, but there's still the stress. This thing is still out there. People are still dying. People are still getting sick. It's still affecting long term. Think about if you're somebody who works a job $15 an hour, right? Let's be honest, it's not a lot of money. Okay. If you get COVID, you might be in some serious financial trouble because of how you don't know how long you're going to have it. You don't know if you're going to end up in the hospital. A person even if you have insurance, you go and spend 7 days in the hospital and you're only making $15 an hour, you may never financially recover from that. And you're going to have to file bankruptcy and you're going to be in trouble. And we got to understand, how do we make this a more, you can't, like, safety is only, we can only put so many things in place.
Yeah.
But how do we make you more, I don't know what the word is. How do we make you more mentally comfortable with, and knowing you have a safety net here and we've got you?
Yeah. So this touches on a big part of my book, Workquake, which, so I'll tell you a similar story.
Yeah.
I can't reveal the name, but there's a major bank in Europe that had hired me to come and speak to them. And I hung out with them for a few days, and they were playing war games like, hey, you're Google, you're PayPal, and attack us. Like, how would you do it? And I was watching all this play out. And they said, Steve, we need you to help our leaders think through, we got to be competitive as a major bank here going forward, but we know that we're going to have to lay off about 1,000 to 5,000 people each year over the next 3 years while we go through this. And so how do we get people focused when we know we're going to have to let people go? And every time we do that, it's incredibly defocusing, demotivating, demoralizing event, right?
Sure.
So I said, and you were sort of hinting along that, I said, all right, I got an idea for you, but it's pretty radical, and I don't think you guys are necessarily going to do it, but this is what I do if I were in your shoes. I said, I've never been in your shoes, but what I would do is I would immediately start a digital business skills university on campus that everyone goes through, so that, no matter what happens, if your number comes up and we're placing people in jobs in other organizations, we're a career upskill center, so that if your number does come up, you feel less afraid, right? Because when people start playing these big companies, when people start playing what I call career defense, I'm here, but I'm mainly here not to get fired. I'm not here to innovate, create, build more value. I'm here not to get fired. And a lot of companies have built systems to reward tenure, not innovation or value creation. And so they're living with the consequences of that. But that was an idea that I had, like, let's do that. So another story, I'm forgetting the exact country, but I believe this is in Europe. One of the business units of General Electric was really struggling to hire leaders. So someone on their team in this particular unit says, let's go after women exclusively, because that's an undertapped resource. They, over the course of the next year and a half, filled every key position with incredibly qualified women. That business unit became the highest performing, most profitable business unit, because they looked at the problem differently, and they solved it differently. Another story, when I was at Fireman's Fund Insurance Company, I was the HR manager. This is early in my career, HR manager for 400 lawyers. Okay.
Oh,
you think it's lucky I have a full head of hair. So I'm HR manager for all these lawyers. And I was like, wow, man, how did you hire all these people all from these law firms? Because we're paying a lot less. But we did the math, and we were going after women who were getting burnt out from the partner track, who wanted to have a life and practice law. And we showed them, okay, you're making, I don't know, $150,000 as a fancy lawyer, but you're not partner yet. If you come in here, we'll pay you 95 grand. But listen, the hours you work, you're making more per hour in this job than you were over there, because you're working less. So your hourly wage is better, and you can take your kids to school. You can go on vacations with them. You can pick them up from school, like that. So we had incredible lawyers, because the system they were living in was broken, and they wanted something different. Their career math, we figured out was a benefit. And there's ways to hack this that are not impossible. Right. And this pressure is going to force organizations to have to think differently.
Yeah. I mean, like, we have a local community college here. I mean, they got hit with it too. Every local employer that has of any age that are under we'll call it $25 an hour, every local employer should be sitting down with a meeting with the president of that university and say, hey, let's work out something and show me the discount levels of how many, like what I have to pay and what I can pay if I start bringing my employees over here and we start putting them on a degree path.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and because there's no way, don't go pay this $1,500 bonus. Like, let me actually give you something you're going to use. Because by the time taxes get that, right, you're not going to see, like, it's not really going to matter. And you're probably not paying it all at once. It's probably, in the fine print, we're going to break it up over 4 pay periods or, whatever. So it really doesn't matter. Yeah. It's really not even anything. So now let me actually give you something. And I think it goes back to the very beginning of this conversation is a lot of people haven't had to date, right? They were the most attractive person at the bar, right? That's what they were. And this is something where, like, Silicon Valley gets a bad rap, but I'm going to take the entrepreneurship and startup world out of Silicon Valley. This is what startups deal with every day. I'm a guy who's never started a business. I did it. I'm a guy who's never started a business. I had no college degree. I graduated 154th out of 187 with a 1.7 GPA. I couldn't do multiplication. I did multiplication tables on my fingers. I couldn't recall them. Mm-hmm. And I went and started a business with the last $1,500 I had to my name and said, hey, you should come work for us because I know what I'm doing. Right. Mm-hmm. Do you know how hard it is to get people to it's hard to get customers, let alone someone to actually come in and sit next to you and actually help you. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, that's hard. And I think that, like, if you have people like that in your community, or if you have people like that even now in your big, tall building who have done that before, if you're in leadership, you need to call HR and say, hey, how many people do you know of in this department who've had and ran their own business and had some success, or did any kind of fundraising and ran their own business? And whoever they are, I need them Monday morning in my office. Let's pay for breakfast. I need them all day. And sit them down and say, hey, we're running with this problem. What would you do? You work here. What would you do? Right. Yeah. And not what would you do to fix the problem? What would you do so we don't continue to have this problem 9 months from now? Mm-hmm. What would you do? And I know that seems so simple, but how often is that actually happening? It's not. It's not happening. It's not happening. And I think we've got to get in a place. And I say we because we're all a part of this. And it is society. We all have to play our part. And I hope that people listen to this, and hopefully one of these ideas, whether it's your stories from LinkedIn or these different ideas, I hope that they're something that sparks something. And if it does, I hope we hear from you. You guys are really good about giving us feedback that listen. And I hope it does because we want to help. We want to be here to help.
Right. And Shane, I want to embellish on your story a little bit and expand on it, which is, I feel that we have unconsciously, not intentionally, unconsciously created this trap thinking in many organizations where to do something good, you have to have done it before. I told you this story off air. I was working with this big conglomerate, and part of their mandate was, hey, you need to tell us how big companies like us are really innovating. And I said, well, that's going to be a short conversation because I don't know any big companies that are innovating like you. And by the way, why do you want to look at companies like you? I said, and so, they thought, oh, you're just this Silicon Valley guy. You think everything shines in a technology company. I said, let's step back for a second. Let's talk about an industry that's been around over 100 years, automobile industry. I said, what's the most valuable company in that space right now? And they're like, they were like, Yep. And so, it's in Tesla. That's right. Okay. I said, how old is Tesla as a company? Is it 100 years? No, maybe 20, probably not even. I said, okay. I said, I've done the homework here. Do you know that Tesla's worth more than Honda, Toyota, and Ford combined?
Yep.
And then still double it? I said, and do you know how long do you think, how many people did they hire out of the automobile industry? 0 initially, right? And so this is another trap that people are falling into, that I'm struggling to hire because I believe the model a person has to work or has to know this stuff. And that's not true. I've seen this again and again. And I've told you this before, Shane. This is the next book I want to release. It's sort of like we are underestimating the power that is unlocked when someone does something they've never done before. You have no idea the energy, the creativity, the different points of view. Now, it doesn't work in every job, but I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, I've seen it just go berserk.
And we talked about this on a previous episode. That same company that's doing the innovation, Tesla, that's worth more than all these other legacy, well, I'll call them legacy manufacturers that have been around for a long time. And what are they doing to hire right now? You and I talked about it in a previous episode. They're putting out, Elon Musk is putting out tweets saying, don't even go to college. Do not go to college. Come here. They're actually in that article. We actually missed it. Chris Riley, who's their head recruiter, I actually just connected with him yesterday on LinkedIn. I want to try and actually get him on the show.
Awesome.
So he actually also said in that article, it's okay if you haven't even graduated high school. Like that's okay. Apply for the job. Like just apply for the job. Like just apply. And so many people get caught up, and you know what they'll say? Because they can't figure it out. They want to find something negative about Elon Musk went on Joe Rogan and did this, or he tweets and he, manipulates it. I don't care what he's doing in his personal life. He knows how to build really successful companies because and you know what? He knows I can bring in people who've never even probably ever held a job in their life. He's willing to bring those people in to that ecosystem because he knows how to do what he's trying to do, and his team knows, and he trusts and believes in his team, and he's willing to say, I'm going to bring a bunch of young people in here. You know why? You know why they're innovative? Because they're willing to do that. They're willing to bring people in who are willing to take chances and you're absolutely correct. It matters. Like there, and you're right. I think that is a good book. I think that's a good book because it is.
There's another great story. I was working as an advisor for a company that was founded by some friends a few years ago called Guild, G-I-L-D. And Guild had determined a methodology. Imagine this. Imagine if you're in a profession that has a ranking and everyone can see how good you are relative to everyone else. Now, what professions today do we know who the best are in the world at? Sports, right? We see the stats. We can see it. Imagine if entrepreneurs had same stats or other people. Well, it turns out software engineers their quality of their code can be evaluated. So what this company did was they went to GitHub, GitLab, other places where shared sites where code was stored, and they looked at how many people are downloading that code. How crisp and tight is that code, and how little code is needed compared to other code that does similar things. And they came up with a stack ranking, okay, of the best software developers in the world, okay? And what they found was, Joey Bag of Donuts in his mom's basement who never went to even high school is as good as some of the best coders at some of the best companies in the world. They literally found people like that. Absolutely. And that was like mind-blowing. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't scale it, and there's problems accessing. I mean, it's an imperfect system. But just imagine if that had played out. I'm a software person, and I know my standing. You think I've got a little leverage when it comes negotiating time? Yeah. Now that I don't think they measure EQ or AQ with that. That's just sort of like it is a hard skill measurement. But still, who wouldn't want to have that for any other profession?
So my entrepreneurial brain goes completely to something, and it's because of knowing someone close to me who has leveraged Upwork recently. While having a full-time job, they've leveraged Upwork and on pace to make over $100,000. And they're a 6-figure employee at a place, and they're just working weekends and nights, just doing some side stuff that they love to do,
making an additional $100K.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yes. So what Upwork does is Upwork rates their people. If you need somebody of a certain skill set and you need to be able to go in, I'm thinking about it right now. If I was having trouble, I would go to Upwork and search for the job, like post a job of the type of person and the people that apply, because you can search location. Like you can have only people in my state, only people in a certain region apply. And I would break the rules. Upwork would probably kick me off their platform at some point, but I would break the rules and I would find those people and I would say, hey, I want to know how much money you make because it shows me you've made $2 million doing graphic design over the last 8 years. You have a 97% rating, and that's great, because you're dealing with a lot of people at one-off that you're able to build no relationship or rapport with. And what will it take for me to get you over here to work for me? And I'll let you keep doing that. I just want you to come up. How can I get you to work for me?
Oh my gosh, I don't know anyone that's doing that. But
that's vetting who you need. There are the market has already decided this person is worthy of the job. I don't need to know anything else about them. Now, I still got to interview them, and I still got to get to know the person. The person may be just a complete jerk, but if we get through the personal interaction, and if you're going to be a remote employee anyway, look, I don't care about input. I just care about output. That's all I care about. I just want to know, can you do the job? When I call on you, will you be there? I need you. I need you. Right.
Yeah.
Like I see something good. You've already been vetted. The market vetted you. And there's things there's anything, computer programmers, website builders, any of that out there that you can do. And the market, leverage the market. Like you can cherry pick employees that way. This person does internet marketing. You can get an unbelievable person doing internet marketing by bringing them in and say, look, well, I'll pay you 200 and you keep doing that. So I'm going to give you a raise, and you keep doing that. So you make 300, and you can work remote. You can continue doing that. And I'm going to keep you as a contractor. And so everything you want, I just want to give you more money. And again, it's just a thought, and my brain goes to that place. So I don't know. Maybe people
you made me remember a provocative talk I gave a few years ago on the future leadership.
Yeah.
And I told people, I go, how many of you took like an Uber to the conference today? And it was like, oh yeah, half the people, because it is a big annual event. I said, all right, so you know what the future leadership is? You just finished a meeting with your employee, and they get served the same thing you got served when you stepped out of that Uber. Give your boss a 1 to 5 star. How'd that meeting go? How are you feeling that your boss cares about you, giving you good focus, got your back? Is she in your corner? That's the future leadership. And imagine how valuable that data could be, but also imagine how uncomfortable a lot of leaders would be.
So Steve, that's two-sided. So I don't know if you know this, but as a rider, you have you have an internal rating on their system.
Yeah.
So also how you're treating people. So that's the employee-employer relationship there summed up in an app.
Yeah.
So man, it's great.
No, so having done many 360s for, leaders, over the years, or for individuals, I mean, most of the time, a lot of employees, when they say, hey, can we do a 360 on my boss? That's sort of code for, I'm not really happy with how things are going.
I was going to say, that's a red flag.
Yeah. But that's, I think, something that people want. There's one organization, and I don't know if this is accurate still, but 3M, Minnesota, they're the guys, sticky pad guys, Minnesota Mining and Minerals, I think it is. They have a methodology of work that is really interesting and is different, and is something I think more and more companies may look to adopt, which is bringing the gig framework, like an Upwork, inside the enterprise. And so you're not working on a job in an organization on an org chart. You are project based. You bid on it. You see the rating of the manager by everyone else who worked on the last projects with the manager, and similarly, the project leader sees your scores. She can see what you've done and so forth. And guess what? The people that don't deliver, they're not chosen for projects. It's like Maslow's, sort of like Darwinian process of, the people that no one wants to work with, they don't get chosen. So you don't get chosen for a few projects. Well, I guess we don't have a place for you. Right. Absolutely. It's kind of interesting, but that's another different model that, where it's more transparent. It's more out there. Had a really, just last comment here, and then we should probably wrap it up, but had a really fascinating conversation with a CEO that I'm working with right now. And it was a text message, because this is how you deal with, 20 something CEOs saying to, hey, we're thinking of sharing everyone's compensation in the company. And I said, really? I said, do you know anyone that's done that successfully? Nope. Okay. And then I said, what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving by sharing everyone's compensation? And so he's like, tell me more. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, he goes, oh, I said, oh, he said, we are doing this because we want everyone to know that pay is fair. I go, hey, do you know anyone that thinks they're overpaid? I said, do you know anyone who doesn't think someone else is overpaid?
Yes. Everybody I'm sitting next to.
Right. And so, and what the heck is fair? Are you going to share every decision you make, who you hire, who you don't hire? You're going to tell everyone exactly why you funded someone's project, didn't fund. I said, I think you're going to create more problems than you think you're solving. But listen, I admire what you're going after. I said, it's a cultural decision. I'm not going to tell you no. I've never seen it work. I've seen more problems created, and I've never seen someone who's looked at the comp and feel and comfortably digest that. So I want you to think very carefully about what's the problem you're solving, because what you're trying to address here is a culture of trust and transparency.
Yeah.
And I admire the direction, and that was sort of I really love the creativity around that, but I was like, tread with caution,
Absolutely. I think this has been a good episode, something that we do and we need to do. And I didn't ask you about this before we start, so I do apologize here for throwing you to the wolves a little bit. But
sure.
You do have a book coming up. We haven't really talked about it, and I think now is a good time to talk about it. Next episode, I think we need to talk about it at the beginning of the episode. But you have a book coming up, and maybe share a few minutes to the listeners who've listened this far, because it's the people who actually really care and who are really into what we're doing.
Right.
I'm going to say it because Steve won't ask you, because he's a really humble guy. Go out and buy 15 copies of it if you get a chance. We would really appreciate it, and give them away, because I think it's something that everyone in the workforce, everyone who's a leader, everyone who's aspiring to be a leader in the future, it's something. And I'm not just saying that because Steve is a friend and a partner and a client or whatever, but it genuinely is. And maybe share a little bit about it, why you wrote it, and
sure. Sure. Thanks, Shane. And I think, if any of the listeners resonate with the sensibilities that you and I bring to this podcast, that's really the essence of how I approach this book. And this book to me is a attempt to try to counter the very dismal barrage that we hear about the future work, which I think is the poorest marketing campaign in history, that we're scaring people, and to try to reveal some macro trends, not point fingers, but to reveal some macro trends that give hope to both professionals about what new careers can look like and what they can be and how they can be discovered. Many careers that I found through the stories of dozens of really interesting people all over the world. People who discovered new professions because of a family illness, people who discovered new professions because of a volunteering effort that they did to discover a new exciting path and to find meaning in different ways. And so that's the first part of my book. And the second part of the book is, hey, organizations, like it or not, people are thinking about work differently. And there's a huge opportunity for you to build a better, more meaningful work that isn't about robots and AI and technology, diminishing humanity. It's around revealing greater humanity and greater upside. And that's it. I mean, just stories from my own experiences. I wish I'd known you, Shane, before I wrote it, because your journey is worthy of a whole book in and of itself. But that's my challenge to you, to sort of, you got to tell your story. But we'll get to that.
I appreciate you putting me on the spot there.
Few episodes, But listen, I sat on mine for like 10 years until I had people, some friends around me saying, "Man, you got to do this," and the pandemic really presented that opportunity. But it really is a book of hope, and it's a book of creative alternatives, I think, to try to shake some of these old habits that we have. I was as interviewed by an organization earlier today, and one of the questions the interview asked me was like, why are some leaders like going back to the old ways? Like, why are they telling everyone to get back to work? And what do you
genie
think that's
back in the
about?
bottle? That's
right.
Yeah.
And they're all, frustrated and cynical about these leaders. Say, listen, let's be honest. When you're faced with something stressful, what do you do as a human? You go to what you know. Yep. And there's so many parts of hybrid and remote that leaders still don't know, even though they had to do it. It was force-fed to them the last year and a half. They're still not comfortable with it. And so they're going to try to revert back to that. Now, I think it's going to limit their labor pool, addressable labor pool, but I understand why they're doing it. And so, it's going to happen. And we're already seeing that JP Morgan's, Morgan Stanley's, and so forth. But that's sort of, that was my inspiration. I've had through the last 10 years, and also throughout my whole working life, working for other people, just hundreds and hundreds of stories and experiences that sort of made me go, I think there's a different way that we can approach the world of work that feels more motivational for people. So that's what's behind it.
Absolutely. Book is Workquake, drops August 3rd. You can buy the audiobook, Kindle book, and hardback version on August 3rd. You can go ahead and pre-order. If anybody is listening that maybe has a team of leaders that you want to maybe buy a bulk order, we'd be happy to work out a discount for you. Reach out to us. You can find us on the socials, LinkedIn, Steve Cadigan, LinkedIn, Shane Howard. Really appreciate everybody that's followed along on this journey. Our episodes, every single episode is getting more and more listeners. We're actually in the multi-hundreds in some episodes. I haven't even updated you. It's been a hectic last couple of weeks for us, but soon I think we'll hit an episode with 1,000, and then we're
nice.
into some cool things. And I just this is exciting for me because I'm getting to work on something that I want to work on, not that I have to work on, and I get to work on and see a front row seat of the impact that you're making to so many different people around the world in what you do every day. And you've been gracious enough to reach out and allow me to play a supporting role in that, and it's fun, and I enjoy it. So
I appreciate you, Shane. Yeah, and again, man, just another really good episode, and thanks for giving me a chance to tout the book. You're right; it's uncomfortable talking about your baby in front of the world, but I cannot wait for August 3rd. And I told you we're gonna have a launch party over here. I had my couple of firsts. Well, today I saw Kindle lit up, so there's actually a price on the Kindle. I didn't see that until today. Nice. Last week I had my first book club reach out to me and say, "Hey, will you come talk to my book club?" And I said, "Yeah." So I can't wait for those opportunities to open more doors and have more discussions with people about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, and I'm tentatively scheduled to be out in your direction. We might even have to do an episode in person.
Yeah, I'll bring you here.
We'll have to do it in person. So since you've told me I had to stay at your house too when I come, so
absolutely.
We'll be right there.
There's a price. You're gonna have to cook some barbecue, but we'll get. I
have no problem. I got no problem cooking when I come to stay somewhere. I got no problem at all. So it's been good, Steve. Another great episode. Thanks again, and for everybody tuning in, this is Shane Howard with the Workquake and
Steve Cadigan,
and we'll see you guys next week.